You're about to see how China turned one of the deadliest deserts on Earth into a living, breathing forest. We're talking about 7,000 square miles of sand where nothing could survive, now covered in trees visible from space. This isn't some small garden project. This is the largest ecological transformation in human history, and the methods they used sound impossible. So how do you make a forest grow where everything dies? The Kubuqi Desert was a death zone, pure sand stretching for thousands of miles, with surface temperatures hitting 160 degrees Fahrenheit in summer. Wind speeds were so violent they'd strip away anything trying to grow. And here's the killer. Sand can't hold water. Drop water on sand, and it drains through in seconds. No moisture retention, no nutrients, zero organic matter. Seeds that landed here would be dead within days. But the real problem was the sand itself. It wouldn't stay still. Dunes, 100 feet tall, shifted constantly, burying anything in their path. You can't plant a forest on ground that moves. You can't grow trees when the soil beneath them disappears overnight. The sand had to be locked down first, and that's when China deployed a technique so simple it sounds ridiculous. They used straw, just regular straw, laid out in a grid pattern across the dunes. Workers would create 3-foot by 3-foot squares, burying the edges 6 inches deep into the sand. Each square mile got over 1,800 of these cells. And here's why it worked. Wind can't pick up sand that's trapped inside these barriers. For the first time in centuries, the sand stayed put, but dead sand still can't support life. So they planted the first wave pioneer plants that could survive with almost no water. Artemisia, sand willows, sea buckthorn. These weren't normal plants. Their root systems spread 15 to 20 feet laterally, physically binding sand particles together like organic rebar. Within 2 years, dunes that had been shifting for generations stopped moving completely. Then, something incredible started happening. Those pioneer plants would die and decompose, creating the first organic matter this sand had seen in centuries. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria moved in. The sand started changing, actually converting into soil. Real dirt forming from pure sand. It took 3 to 5 years to create a stable base layer. But you can't build a forest on shrubs alone. With stable ground, China rolled out Phase 2 drip irrigation systems running for miles into the desert. Pipes delivering water, drop by drop, directly to tree roots. Zero waste. Each tree got exactly 2 liters per day, just enough to survive. They planted salt-tolerant poplars first, fast-growing, nearly indestructible. And here's where the transformation accelerated. These trees created shade. Surface temperatures that had been hitting 160 degrees dropped by 30 degrees. That shade meant moisture didn't evaporate instantly anymore. Within 5 years, poplars were 30 feet tall, but China wasn't done. Underneath those poplars, they planted shrub layers, multiple tiers of vegetation like a natural forest. Each layer trapped more moisture and added more organic matter. The soil got deeper, 6 inches, then 12 inches, then 2 feet of actual dirt where there had only been sand. For areas too remote to reach on foot, they deployed drones. These drones dropped seed balls, clay-coated seeds with nutrients packed inside. Seeds that would normally die in the desert now had their own food source built in. Tens of thousands of seed balls were scattered across areas humans couldn't access. They built rainfall collection systems, channeling the rare desert rain to tree clusters. Every single drop of water got used, nothing wasted. And then, 10 years in, something unprecedented happened. The forest started sustaining itself. Leaf litter from the trees created natural mulch. Root systems grew so deep they tapped into underground water tables. Water that had been there all along, just unreachable. Trees that had been hand-watered for years suddenly didn't need human help anymore. And then they started reproducing seeds germinating on their own, new saplings growing without anyone planting them. The engineered forest was becoming a real ecosystem. The canopy coverage meant sunlight couldn't superheat the ground anymore. Humidity rose inside the forest. Morning dew formed on leaves, moisture appearing in a place that had never seen it. That dew watered new seedlings naturally, without any irrigation system. Underground fungal networks developed trees sharing nutrients through root connections, the same biology you'd find in ancient forests, except this forest was only 20 years old. Here's where it gets crazy. Species diversity exploded without any human intervention. Over 100 plant species started growing on their own. Birds flew in from hundreds of miles away, bringing seeds in their feathers and droppings, and those seeds actually grew. The forest welcomed them. What had been lifeless sand now had earthworms, insects, small mammals, an entire food chain assembling itself from nothing. But the real shock was what happened at the edges. The forest started expanding on its own. Trees at the edges dropped seeds beyond the planted zones. Those seeds grew. The forest was spreading itself, adding acres every single year without human help. Natural seed dispersal was doing what millions of workers had done manually, except now it was automatic. Wind that used to destroy everything was now carrying seeds into untouched desert. Those seeds landed, took root, and survived because the forest had changed the climate around it. The humidity, the shade, the cooler temperatures, it was all radiating outward. The forest was terraforming the desert. Within 30 years, 6,000 square kilometers of the Kubuqi Desert had transformed. That's over 2,300 square miles, an area larger than Delaware converted from dead sand to living forest. But here's what nobody expected. Other deserts started responding to the same techniques. The Muas Desert, dead for centuries, began turning green. By 2020, Chinese officials declared it was no longer a desert that had existed since ancient times gone, erased by trees. Then came the ultimate proof that this wasn't a fluke. China had planted 66 billion trees since 1978. 66 billion. Each one placed deliberately, strategically, in locations where experts said nothing could grow. And they didn't just survive, they thrived. Forest coverage across northern China jumped from 12% to 23%. Deserts that had been expanding for generations suddenly stopped. Then they started shrinking. Satellite images showed green spreading across regions that had been brown and yellow for centuries. The Great Green Wall, a barrier of trees stretching over 4,500 kilometers, became visible from space. You could see it from orbit, a line of green cutting across what used to be an ocean of sand. But the most shocking part wasn't the scale, it was the speed. Deserts that took nature thousands of years to create, China reversed in decades. 40 years from the first straw grid to self-sustaining forests supporting hundreds of species, the technology worked. The straw grids, the pioneer plants, the strategic watering, the layered vegetation, every step of the process proved that deserts aren't permanent. They can be beaten. And China's not stopping. Right now, as you're hearing this, the forest is still growing. The project runs until 2050, with a target of 42% forest coverage across northern China. Millions more acres of desert are marked for transformation, more drones, more grids, more trees going into ground that's supposed to be dead. Villages that were abandoned because of sandstorms, people are moving back. Rivers that dried up generations ago are flowing again. Wildlife that had disappeared is returning. You can stand in places that were pure sand 20 years ago, and you're surrounded by trees 30 feet tall. This is what you just witnessed. Sand turned into soil. Soil turned into forest. Forest turned into an ecosystem that sustains itself. A 50-year process that reversed what nature took millennia to create. 7,000 square miles of dead desert, now a living, breathing forest that grows larger every single day. The world said it couldn't be done. China did it anyway. And proved that if you understand the science, use the right techniques in the right order, deserts don't have to be permanent. You can turn death into life. You can make forests grow where nothing was supposed to survive. That's not theory anymore. You can see it from space.